Hi.
Hi, Gal. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Bob. Hi, Toby.
Hello.
We have a lot of students. Oops, I see that Rutgers student background. Hello,
Hi, this is Trail.
Cheryl.
Yes.
Cheryl.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, David. Beverly. Hello.
We're just waiting another minute or I guess a minute. Let everyone get on. And we're gonna start off.
We'll wait until 7:03 or 7:04.
Okay.
No, I see Bill Gunn. He's muted, but hello, Bill.
Hey there, how are you? It's nice to see you.
We're good. We're waiting for that Johnson & Johnson vaccine. It's everyone saying to you every day, when is it coming? When is it coming? When is it coming?
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Carla.
Hi.
Hey, Carla.
Happy New Year, everyone. I know it's like January is almost behind us, but it kind of flew by.
I see some of you I've met. Hi, Kristen. It's Beverly. Hello. Oh, Lauren. Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
Our star. Hello, Lauren.
Yes.
As we're getting ready, I'm going to ask all the students to make sure that they've muted their mics and turned on their cameras. And David, who I'm about to introduce, has been very generous and has said that as he's speaking, he will take questions. So David, can I just ask you as a housekeeping item, would you like the questions to come in electronic hands or in real hands? Or would you like Gal to, or me to, I would take the questions? How would you like to do that?
You know what? Whatever is easy. It doesn't matter. You guys can take the questions and I can answer them.
I'll take
That's
the
probably the
questions.
easiest, I would think, right?
I'll take the questions, and I'm going to request that all questions come in verbally. So please raise your hand. That way we all get to know each other. It's more friendly. And please raise your hand. I will call on you. And please don't write in the chat. It's very distracting. So I will call on you and you will unmute yourself, okay? All right, so it's my honor to introduce our guest speaker this evening, David Belasco, who will be discussing product profitability in the fashion and luxury marketplace over the next hour. Most of you know me, you all do, but for those who do not, my name is Dr. Tavi Ronen, and I am the founding director of the Rutgers Business School undergraduate and graduate Business of Fashion programs, and the founding director of the Center for Business of Fashion, and a professor of finance at RBS for over 25 years. I'm pleased to announce that we are also joined this evening by 3 of the Center for Business of Fashion executive board members. And Beverly, do you mind raising your hand? Beverly Eisenbray, William Gunn, and Carla Verena. There we go. As a housekeeping item, I would like to take this opportunity to remind you that while all MSBF students are in attendance today, this event also happens to be a required synchronous session for my 2 Finance for Fashion courses, the MSBF version and the undergraduate Finance for Fashion and Other Creative Pursuits. So we have a nice mix of graduate and undergraduate students here tonight. For my students in my classes this semester, please take notes during the lecture. Mr. Belasco is an alumni of Rutgers University and is currently the Senior Vice President of Tailored Clothing at the Levi Group. His responsibilities are in sales, sourcing, development, and production. Earlier in his career, he held senior roles in sales and product management at Burlington Industries, which was at the time the largest textile company in the world. David is also the former CEO and managing partner of One Source Apparel Group, a global sourcing and sales company. This evening, Mr. Belasco will be discussing the current retail landscape, how retailers measure product profitability, department store off-price retailers club and ECOM, costing of a product, how to build it, and current state of affairs for major supply chain interruption and how it's affecting retail, or at least some of those. Please join me in welcoming a real fashion sales and global sourcing guru, David Belasco. And David, we're honored to have you here today.
Well, thank you for that that nice introduction. I really appreciate it. And I think for this to be really for everyone to get a lot out of this, I think a lot of questions. I love getting questions because I love talking about the different things that I do and how it affects anything that goes on in the world today. Because I don't have a unique role. I have a role that a lot of other fashion companies have someone like me who does. Anyway, let me begin by talking a little bit about the current retail landscape. I mean, it's we're all in challenging times right now. Retailers are struggling, or at least most of them are struggling, and they're all trying to figure out a way to get back to some kind of steady ground. The ground beneath them keeps changing. Unfortunately, we're in a very dynamic environment right now. The pace of change is forced upon all retailers, and they weren't all prepared for it. Most of them have probably seen change that they were anticipating 3, 4, and 5 years down the road happening right now. So, I mean, let's talk about basic retailers like Macy's. And I use the word basic because basic meaning they're all brick and mortar for the most part. That's where their bread and butter is. That's where the profitability is. So a company like Macy's, for example, how do they look at profitability? Historically, they've looked at it on a foot by foot basis. So they'd look at their store and they'd say, this square foot will generate X amount of dollars. How can I take that space and make it much more profitable? Am I turning product faster? Am I getting product for less expensive? And I'm selling it higher? And how quickly is it moving? Challenges today. They had stores that were closed. They have stores now where people don't want to go in. They've got stores now that are too big and they're not being able to maximize the space that they have. So it's a challenge. They've got an e-com business and it's not there yet. It's good, but it's not Amazon. It's good, but it's not where it needs to be yet. Yeah, they're growing at 30 and 40 and 50%, and everyone reads the journal, and everyone reads what's going on in the retail business today, and everyone talks about that kind of growth, but that growth still doesn't substitute for what they've lost on the retail floors, and it's been very, very tough for them. So they're all trying to pivot in different directions on an e-com basis in a digital world. Macy's, for example, has also opened up their backstage, and that's been a big growth vehicle for them. So, the off-price world is really what is starting to turn the cash registers. And people like me who produce product both in the high end and the low end, we have to figure out a way to make it work right now for that kind of a landscape. You probably heard earlier this week, Belk Fire for Chapter 11. Was a great Southern-based department store chain, did great business. They went through a leveraged buyout a couple of years ago, and the debt they couldn't overcome that. Great story, but it's still not working there right now, and who knows whether or not they're going to come back. I here they are, but I don't think they will. Again, as they changed, as we went to COVID. They totally changed their business around. They sold suits and they sold women's dress apparel and they sold all kinds of things that weren't really happening. They made a quick change, wasn't successful, didn't work. Profitability just, went right down the tube, and they didn't have any kind of digital presence. Big problem for them. So who's successful today? The success stories that people like me are seeing and you can read about are the Costcos, the BJ's, the Sam's Club of the world. How do they measure profitability? How do they measure success? So if you go into a Costco, for example, you see items on a table. They want items on their tables to turn at a certain dollar amount each day and each week. So if we put a product on the table, let's say we're putting up a zip up a sweatshirt, their requirements for that product may be $500 a day in each club, and they've got 500 700 clubs. I don't remember exactly the number. So if it's not turning at that number, they start getting worried. They've got about a 10-day 2-week window, and if you notice, if you walk into a club, you'll see a sign. It'll say $10.99. Then you may see for a 2-week window where they'll drop the price $4. That's their coupon. And all of a sudden, they will start turning product 10 and 20 times they were turning before that coupon. So my company produces product under the brands Nautica. We do Nautica men's and Nautica ladies outerwear. So if you went into Costco, you would see our Nautica women's coat. We had that coat turning certain days at over 25,000 units a day because we put a coupon on it. It was a $29.99 coat. We brought it down to $24.99. That was a planned coupon. So we built the product to sell at that price, brought it in, and let's say it was selling at 15,000 units a day. We bumped it up to 25,000 units a day for a 14-day window. And we made our plan. We hit our profitability numbers. We hit our plan numbers. We hit our sales numbers. Big win. Everybody very happy. They've got the ability to do things like that. BJ's does it. Sam's do it, where they can, at any given time, the buyers and the GMs at Costco can generate sales on a very fast basis by couponing something. And the fact of the matter is, everybody walks into that store. You're walking in to buy milk. You're buying groceries. You're buying Sweet and Low. You're buying cereal. They're counting on you to do what they call the treasure hunt. It's a treasure hunt mentality. They want you to go into the store and they want you to go and search. They measure their success on their consumers, or on their members, as they call them, on cart size. So they like to know that their average member, every time they shop, spends $250 each time they're in, and that's by the cart that they're in. And so that's how they measure success for their members and how well things are selling. If anyone has questions as I'm going, please just chime in and please ask away.
Beverly.
Only because David already told me this earlier. I thought it was interesting when you say treasure hunt, because I was complaining that these stores move everything. Every time I go in, the paper products are not in the same place. And so I thought it would be interesting to explain why that is.
Well, again, it's a treasure hunt. They don't want you to get comfortable. They want you to go and find it, because they're constantly adding new products and they're constantly testing products, whatever it is. Paper plates, different types of butter, Rayo's tomato sauce, and of course, apparel, which is my lane. Luckily for us, I say my company, we've been able to place a lot of product in there. We've gotten a very great turn on anything we've done there. We're also participating in some of their private brand, which is their Kirkland product, which I must tell you actually is probably the most difficult thing I've ever had to do, was find a way to get product that qualifies for their brand. They are the toughest people out there. I have to give them yarn size and fabric weight and picks and ends per square inch, and they want to know where the cotton's coming. So, just I'll share a short story with you. We're bidding on a program. It's got cotton in it, and there's certain cotton that comes from certain parts of China that's illegal to bring into the United States. You're not supposed to do it. So we're proposing to use cotton from Brazil. They want us to use cotton from the United States. No problem, we'll do it, but we have to qualify and we have to produce evidence that it comes in from the States. I have to get bills of sale from the cotton growers to my yarn supplier, to my textile mill, and I have to present it to them as part of the evidence that I'm using and I'm doing what I'm saying I'm doing. And then the testing protocols are beyond. So if you're gonna go to Costco and you're gonna buy one of their private brands, Kirkland, I'm telling you, you're gonna get a great value and you're gonna get a great product. They know how to build it. And, Costco and Sam's and BJ's, they're also a little different than the regular retailers. They work on different margin requirements. So most retailers, Macy's, for example, or Nordstrom's, their margin requirements are usually 60 to 70, 75%, because they play what we call the high-low game. So they'll put it up for $100. It'd be $100 for 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks later, you see it on sale, 40% off, 30% off, 50% off, 60% off. They build all of that into the costing at the end of the season. And then sometimes if it still doesn't turn, they'll come back to me and they'll say, hey, we need markdown money. You need to make us what they call, make us whole. Make us whole. They want us to make sure that they met their financial requirements for that product for the season. Costco, BJ's, Sam's Club are different. They work on anywhere between 15% and 20%. Their belief is work on low margins. We're already getting our money. We're paying to turn our lights on by our member fees. So their fees generate their income to basically run their operations, and gives them the ability to sell product at margins that are much more palatable to the consumer. That's why you're getting the kind of values there that you can't get anyplace else. They also place big volume. So, they're probably the largest, our largest outerwear customer, bigger than Macy's, bigger than anybody else. I mean, the units are what we like to refer to as telephone numbers. They're big. The next thing I'd like to talk about is
David, do you have time for another question?
yes, absolutely.
I have a question from Andrew.
Sorry, hi. Yeah, I've worked a lot in the off-price market, but with Costco, I could never understand how the fence worked.
Okay.
That as a designer, I worked a lot with them, but that always seems like a bit of a mystery to me as to how that relationship worked.
So that's a great question. So Costco uses product placement, or where they're going to place the product in the store. They call it end caps, or they call it fencing. So if you walk into Costco and you walk in the front door, and right along that front wall, there's a fence in between the in and the out. That's called fencing, and you pay a premium for that. You also pay a premium for what they call end caps. An end cap is that you're on the end in a premium place. Now, end cap could cost you $1 a unit. It could cost you 50 cents a unit. And, for us, we put it into our costing models, and it just becomes part of our cost. And typically we'll pay that at the end of the season. They'll send us all we'll send all our invoicing, and they'll take deductions for fencing or for end caps or whatever else there needs to be. But that's a great question, because that is a common term for Costco or Sam's. Not so much BJ's, but more Costco and Sam's.
I also had a question I wanted to bring up. Does that also have to do with the fact that they have a membership?
The membership, what the membership does is it gives you the ability to, or gives them the ability to work on much smaller margins, because typically most retailers need to work on those high margins, A, to bring the price down eventually, but B, also to pay for the lighting and pay for the store employees and pay for all the overhead costs that go into displaying or running that store. Any other questions on that?
Hi, David. My name is Fernando. I work for Ross Stores, and like the treasure hunt is like our main philosophy.
Right.
I think even more than Costco, because we receive like new shipments every day into our stores, and we purposely never have like a run, like say there's like a men's polo, like we'll have like one large, one medium, and like it's like this mass. It's really interesting the way like they do things, and like every box has like just mixed products, and like when you go into a Ross store, it often looks like they've been robbed, because on purposely they limit the the selection have in stores, and the customer's like, oh, this is the last one, and it works, and they buy it. So I feel like Ross has done a really good job with like that treasure hunt mentality. And our distribution centers have like a hotel where they buy in bulk, like things off season, and then they distribute it amongst the chain. Like they've done a really great job at that whole treasure hunt mentality. And it's just interesting how like they make the choice for the customer. And even during the pandemic, like we've opened up, we just keep opening more stores, and we're opening up a new DC in Texas. Like we're doing really good with the whole off-price treasure hunt mentality.
Yeah, that's very true. So we also do a very large business with Ross
Oh, yeah.
and TJ's and Burlington, TJ's,
Mhm.
Marshalls, and so that was going to be my next, because they're I would tell you that after the clubs, the typical off-pricers like, and though the leading pack there are Ross and Burlington and TJ Maxx and their chains, which is now Sierra Trading, Home Goods. They also have the treasure hunt mentality. The difference is their requirements are different. So when I work with the Ross buyers or the TJ buyers, they have a 2-week window. They want that product in and out in 2 weeks, and it's amazing. So they value and measure their open to buy differently, and it's all about turn. How quickly can you turn the product? They're not looking at item per square foot. They don't look at that at all. They look at bringing something in. Am I out of it in 2 weeks? Is it 70 or 80% gone in 8 days? So
yeah, generally after 4 weeks, like we have 4-week turns for the most part, and like we
Right.
only keep samples up to 4 weeks and a 40% sell through, and then we get rid of them because they just want to keep moving to the next thing. It's a very quick process.
Exactly. And an interesting thing about, for example, TJ Maxx, you'll have a very tough time finding outerwear at TJ Maxx after December. They have a hard, or historically have had a hard stop, no outerwear after December, because they believe in January, that's when spring starts. So we just did deals. I just did a deal with the TJ Maxx buyer on performance UPF t-shirts, sun protection t-shirts, a week ago. That'll start going to a Southern based stores and start coming up the coast and all over the country. And again, Burlington's the same way. Now here's a challenge that some of the off prices have had during COVID. I'm kind of skipping around a little bit, but we're talking about off pricers, and you mentioned about your warehousing and opening new warehouses. If you go into a Burlington today and you walk around the store, you'll notice that there's a lot of empty space, and that is true also in TJ's and also in some of the Ross stores. So many of the off pricers have had problems getting people to work in the distribution centers because of COVID. They don't have the ability, and they blow through products so quickly, more so than even Costco or regular retail, and they move it so fast. They're having problems getting all of that through their own internal supply chain. Warehouses are moving much faster. There's not as many trucks on the road to supply those stores. It's a major problem, and it's starting to get a little bit better, but hopefully we'll start seeing some more product in the stores. Now, someone like myself, I'm in stores all the time because I like to see how my product is doing. I want to see what my competition's doing. I want to see where price points are, and I want to see what's selling. Typically you can go into a store and see, if you've got 1 or 2 left of something, it's gone pretty well. And I also like to keep them honest on their costing. So when we work with Ross or TJ's or Burlington and we're selling them our Nautica jackets, we tell them you can't go below 59 or 49 or 39. And we have to go in and check because we license the brand through a licensing company called ABG. And they'll say to us, this is the floor is $39. That's it. So then we have to go police it. So we spend a lot of time in the stores and see what's going on to kind of do our own checks and balances.
And last thing about Ross, like we only recently, like all our DCs recently are up to running fully, like I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago, but it took us a long time to get everything back up and running just because of COVID. Yeah.
That hurt sales. I mean, not being able to get the product in the off-price channel hurt because, again, their speed. So Costco's treasure hunt, people buy for price. The off-pricers are all about speed. 2 weeks in, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, get it in, get it out, and start moving on to something else. Macy's, it's like some things can lay there for like 3 and 4 months. They try to bring new stuff in, but they're not equipped like a Burlington or a Ross or a TJ's to turn product as fast as those guys are. It's just not their model. They don't do it. They're starting to do it backstage, and they're getting a little better on it, and that's where their growth is going to come. But they're so far behind those other guys. E-com, which is it's the shining star right now. It's a challenge for most wholesalers to work in an e-com basis because most retailers would like us to do D2C, so direct to consumer. We have the ability to do it. Like for example, with JCPenney. Well, JCPenney is a big customer of ours. We do D2C, so we could potentially turn 10 or 15,000 units a day out of our warehouse direct to consumer. One piece, one box. It's very, very expensive to do. Get charged a lot for it, and it's really inefficient the way we do it right now. If you look at a company like Amazon or Fanatics, and they've got the infrastructure built to be able to do it, which is why companies like that are so successful. A company like mine, and we have a lot of brands. We have a new brand we're launching called Outdoor Life. If you go onto Amazon right now, and you'll see our webpage. We actually have a store that we built on Amazon, and it looks like a true digital store. That's where brands are having their most success. That's where they're turning the most product is on Amazon. They're getting the most hits. For a company, a wholesaler like myself, it's the most profitable way for us to do business because we're getting full price. There's very little markdowns. It's easier business to do because we're actually shipping product directly to their DC. They're distributing it themselves. They know how to do it. They know how to take care of their consumers better than I do. They know the efficiencies of the warehousing models, and it just works. It's my job to make sure we're shipping them the right stuff. They'll say to us, it's your site. You put on what you think you need to sell, and if it works, it works. And then you just grow and you get moved, what we call, to the front of the page, to the front of the line. That's kind of the way their model works.
So I just wanted to ask a quick question. So when do you know when to stop supplying to someone? Like when do you know that becomes too risky for you based on their supply chain model if it's not efficient?
So there's a couple different ways to answer that. One, I'll answer that first from the financial aspect. So we run all of our business through CIT. CIT is a factor. So we don't what we call carry our own paper. We don't take the risk. We pay a VIG. We pay a percentage. It could be, 15 basis points, 12 basis points, 18 basis points. It really depends on who the customer is and what their financial strength is at the time we're getting ready to ship. For example, before JCPenney filed for bankruptcy, JCPenney had it would cost us an extra 2 or 3% to ship JCPenney. We had to ship them. We had to build it into our costs. And we had to understand that it was going to cost us less, but we were still covered because we weren't taking the risk. We were paying somebody else to take the risk for us, and we were going to come out clean no matter what happened. Now, eventually, if we sell too many people with bad, who is not financially viable, places like CIT, which we've seen earlier in the 90s, will have issues being financially viable. So that's the financial aspect of it. From a product standpoint and from a fashion standpoint, when do we start turning it off? So we typically see sales results. So most of our buyers and most of our retailers will share turn with us. They'll share results of what's successful, what's not successful. All the buyers like to talk about what's doing well that week or what's doing well that month because they all review it on Monday morning. They all review their open to buy. They all review their sales plan on how their plans are doing versus their forecast. So typically we do calls with most of them on a weekly basis to find out what's doing well and what's not doing well. Now that also will affect when we have what we call replenishment programs. We'll do programs that we replenish. It could be the same item, it could be the same pant, the same short in black, in gray, in red. We need to talk to them on a regular basis because we will put in forecasting models of anywhere between 6 and 12 months. And what we call it, that's more of a revolving forecast. So that forecast for us changes every week. and we will plot that in to see how sales are doing. Maybe it's doing well. And maybe after 2 weeks, it's up 30%. Well, we need to start ramping up our supply chain. We need to start talking to our fabric mills. We need to start talking to our factories about getting some more space ready. Now, in some cases, in replenishment, we'll stage product in certain places. Maybe in the mill, we'll stage yarn. Maybe in the factory, we'll stage finished fabric. And then maybe in the factory, we'll also stage some finished product, finished shorts or finished shirts or suits or whatever it is, to get it much quicker in case sales increase. Hope that answers your question.
Hi, my name is Stephanie. I have a quick
Hi.
question for you. So being that, so for my company, we do legwear and we do accessories. So we obviously saw a decline on people buying. They were buying more stuff online, but we rely on big customers. Like we sell to Nordstrom and we sell to, even we work with Ross. But for products like that, we saw a decline, but I will say that we kept that kind of steady at stores like Costco. And like, of course, these stores were open for doing groceries, but since you sell product in there, did you see a big difference? Did you see a decline, or did you just see it to, stay steady since you were working with like companies like Costco or BJ's, for example, that stayed open during the pandemic?
So good question. Yes, so we didn't see an increase. We saw a little decline early on. So I would tell you that from March through June, if you talk to the Costco buyers and how are things going, business is great. Their answer is overall business is great. Like our business is up 30%. Our apparel sales are down 90%. Huge concern. So what they all did was, and they were all really good. They were with their good suppliers. They pushed product out. They wouldn't bring stuff onto the floor that's not going to sell because they have plans, and if they're not moving anything. So for example, if I have a shirt there in March and there's no one's coming in and buying shirts. If they mark it down from $10 to $2, there's still not going to be anywhere to buy it. So all they're doing is giving up margin dollars. All they're giving up is profitability. So smartly, they decided to hold product where it is, hold product in my warehouse. Listen, it made it a little bit more tough. It made it tougher for everyone like myself because, we had to hold stuff and we had financial plans to be able to take us through the year, but we held it. And some things we're shipping for spring of this year. Some things they took later in the year. Some things we shipped half of our product in September. We're shipping another half in April of this year. So they worked with us. We kind of worked together. It's when you have issues like this. I mean, you don't have global pandemics every day, but when you've got issues, if you have a good relationship and you work as a team with them, with any retailer, even with our suppliers, you can figure out a way to work it. I'd like to talk about my team. I talked about an internal customer and an external customer. Our external customer I refer to as our retail partners, and we call them partners because we're all in this together. Our internal customer is our factories, is our textile mills, is our freight forwarders. It's the people who get us our containers to move both fabric and finished garments from place to place. Those people are as important to us as our retail partners are, because if we can't make money, we're going out of business. If we go out of business, there's one less person to supply the retailers. If we go out of business, there's one less person to buy fabrics and garments wherever we make it in the world. So it's a real chain reaction. And if you're working together in true partnership, you can usually figure things out. I mean, retailers and buyers today understand that more than ever before. The financial implications of what they do, the decisions they make, sometimes on a daily basis, whether to push something out, is super important. And another example is we're having issues, not just us, port issues. So there's containers that are backed up in California, in the port of Los Angeles. It's taking an extra 2 weeks. Well, spring is now. So I have buyers in Florida, Bell's department store, for example, Bell's Outlet. They have cancel dates of 2/5 and 2/10 and 1/31. we can't make it. So they're working with us because it's not our fault. It's not our fault there's not enough truckers to be able to move product into our DCs. So instances like this, everyone's really been working very, very closely together to make sure that everybody comes out of this as whole as possible. Okay. So that's kind of a little bit of the retail landscape, what's going on profitability wise. I mean, I know I've kind of skirted a little bit. I didn't get into as much detail, but I kind of want to go through a couple more things and talk to you about, how to build a product to make it successful at retail. So we have a brand called Hickey Freeman, which is a high-end men's brand, sells at Nordstrom's. Our products sell anywhere between, it's probably $79 and $135. We have some shirts that sell $155. Great brand, high-end, luxury. We do very well with it. How do we build it? I mean, we've got different ways to do it. It's a much higher, but since it's a much higher price, we make smaller units. So I'll make 300 units of something. So I have to find factories in Jordan. I have to find factories in Peru, and I have to find factories that will be able to make smaller products that can, hit those minimums that we need to hit. How does it start? We start building product, and some of you may know this already. Everything for us starts with fabric. We have the ability to search the world for any fabric that we need, any fabric that we want. We work out of Italy, we work out of Portugal, we work out of Spain, and then we work in every other country in the world, Bangladesh, China, Vietnam, and in South America. So, our costing models are built on how much fabric we're going to use, which for us, we called our yield. What is our yield on a fabric? And our yield is basically figured out by taking what we think it will take to make that garment. Maybe it's 2 yards, maybe it's 1 yard. It's our fabric. We have our trim costs. So trims could be anything from buttons, and they could be lining, and they could be fusible or anything in a garment. So that's our trim cost. And our model is built upon something called CMT, cut, make, and trim. And then we have a finish cost. So it's all about how quickly we can make in a factory, how many minutes are on a garment. So we look at a shirt, maybe there's 50 minutes in a shirt, and we know that our factories will charge us, it'll take them, it's 50 minutes in a shirt, maybe it's $2 a minute, and that's how we come up with we call our cut and make costs. And our trims in, we get a finished product at the end of the day. We buy what we call FOB. It's what the product costs when it leaves the factory door. And then you've got duties. And for us, we buy anything and everything from high end to opening price point polyesters, and duty rates will go anywhere from 7.1% all the way up to right now 32 plus 7. So if you're buying product out of China, you're paying an extra 7.5%. So if we're producing a product in our Caribbean Joe brand, which is more opening price point, we're producing huge volume here. We're buying 50,000 units or 100,000 units at a time. Excuse me. Our costing models are so different here because here it's all about volume and it's all about speed, and we get much better value for the fabric that we're buying because we're cutting much bigger units. We're getting more efficiencies in the factory. I like to tell everyone that, sewing machines, they don't know what they're sewing. They're just sewing. They're just going. But the operators, they know how to work the sewing machine. If they're running 50,000 units on a line, you're getting much more consistency, and you're getting much more profitability because they're running it much faster. And it's the efficiencies are unbelievable when you're running 50 to 100,000 units versus 300 units. It's a night and day difference. It could be as much as if you look at our costing sheets, could be as much as 10%, and 10% on our product it could be a very big number. A company like mine, we produce in factories that can, as I said, can make small amount of units and large amount of units. What we also try to do is we try to regionalize our sourcing capabilities. again, to maximize time. So what I mean by that is we try to find textile mills, for example, in Bangladesh. If we're producing a garment in Bangladesh, we want to produce fabric there as well. We're cutting out time because time for us is money as well. Most retailers want to buy as close to the market as they possibly can, and they want to cut down lead times as fast as possible. So if we're buying fabric in Bangladesh, the lead time to get fabric to a garment facility is probably a week or 10 days. If we have to buy that same fabric out of China, you have to add almost 30 days to your lead time. And then today, if there's less containers, if there's less, container ships on the water, the lead times just expand more and more. So it's a challenge. Products like that, the opening price point products, we get to the retail floor quicker. They sell much faster. One of our Caribbean Joe shirts will retail anywhere from $12.99 to $19.99. Our ladies shorts will retail anywhere from $11.99 to $14.99. So big difference between what we do in Hickey Freeman versus what we do in Caribbean Joe. The sale rate is much faster. The turn rate is much faster, but we need to make a lot more of those to hit the profitability numbers for us to be successful than we do in a brand like Hickey Freeman. I can sell a lot less Hickey Freeman, make bigger margins, be more profitable at times, because if I'm not running through product, moving through product as fast as at a Ross or a TJ's or a Burlington, then it really doesn't matter. You've got to sell. I can sell 50,000 units of our Caribbean Joe and make X amount of profit. I can sell 5,000 or 6,000 units of my Hickey Freeman and make X plus, just because of the way of the cost of the product is both made and what it sells for at retail. Any questions on any of that?
Adiba?
Hi, yeah. So I had a question about like the off retailer products the lower price products you have versus the luxury products you have. Have you seen like a difference in sales since the pandemic started? Like, are there less people buying luxury versus before?
So the answer is yes, and people's buying habits have changed. So if you look at a company like Nordstrom's, for example, and you walk into the store, their tailored clothing department in men's, or their ladies dress up department, the ladies dress department, those parts of the stores have taken probably the biggest hits, and it's really been tough. Their plans have really went out the door. But and those are also high ticket items. So if you go into Nordstrom's and you look at a men's suit, you can spend on the low end $500. On the high end, if you're buying a Hickey Freeman suit, you can spend as much as $2,000. Same in the dresses. Their women's dresses are $299, $399, $599, $1,000. There's no market for that right now. There's no consumer for that. So what they were planning, and those numbers made up such an important part of their profitability. Now they have to repivot to activewear. And, if you go into Nordstrom, their Zella products for men the pants are $49, $59, their tops are $39. Nordstrom's lived on the $155 men's dress shirt. They lived on their suits. In the women's area, the blouses were expensive, the dresses. So it affected them because they can't turn as much product to make up for the shortfall that they're seeing in their luxury product and the higher cost products. It's almost impossible. They're not selling as many handbags as they were selling. Makeup is still turning because everybody still wants to buy makeup, and it's easy to buy that online. It's easy to buy active stuff online. So those stores took some pretty big hits because of the nature of the type of product that they were selling and the nature of the type of product that drove some of their profitability. Because the profitability, for example, on a $1,000 suit, if they're working on 70 points on a $1,000 suit and they're working on 70 points on a $49 pant, it's a numbers game. It's a pure financial, it's cash. So if you take the numbers out of it and you just look at what the what the financial part of it is, not the percentage, just the cash they're generating with that product, they get killed. Even though the margins are the same, it doesn't equate because they've allocated a certain percentage of their business, of their profitability towards those higher end products. That's been the toughest challenge for companies like that. Okay. Any
just
other
had a question.
questions?
I had a quick question. Yeah, just in regards to retailers, do you think a retailer like a Lord and Taylor, they could have survived like longer if they would have introduced like a backstage model like Macy's?
Um, maybe, but Lord and Taylor struggled for years. So they were teetering for the last 5 and 6 years. So, and they really didn't have the financial wherewithal that Macy's had to be able to do it. Now, if you remember, I don't know how much you know about the Macy's model. So Backstage started out with 10 doors. Macy's was able to create and turn some of their current footprint into those off-price models. Lord and Taylor just didn't have that. They were a much smaller chain. They were 39 doors, excuse me, 39 doors. They just didn't have the retail footprint to be able to do that. Just a little fun fact, Lord & Taylor is on its way back. You will see them out there shortly, first in a digital world. I'm not sure how quick they're going to get into the brick and mortar, but my friend just became the CMO there, so I know they're starting up again, but it's all going to be digital to start. We'll see how quick they can get themselves up and running, but it's a great name. It's been a great retail name. It's got great retail history. And I'm glad to see that they're going to come back, and you'll see them, I don't know, within the next 6 months, pop up digitally again, which is really important. It's great for someone like me because I need more customers. Century 21's out of business. You know, I just told you Belk, JCPenney, who knows what's going to happen. Kohl's is doing okay, thank God. There's not a lot of retailers left. Steinmart went out of business. You know, so much of our business now is concentrated on the clubs, concentrated on the off price. While Macy's, I believe, is going to be strong going forward, they've got some financial struggles right now too. They're trying to get through. So it's a challenge to pivot and to uncover new ways and new opportunities to do business when your retail landscape keeps shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. It's a huge challenge, huge.
Do you think that the off-price retail landscape keeps shrinking because they have difficulty keeping up with e-com in that model?
No, just the opposite, actually. As the gentleman said before, Ross is growing. They're opening up new doors. So is Burlington. So is TJ's. And Burlington, I tell you from experience, right before COVID. So two or 3 years ago, Burlington actually started a digital presence. End of last year, so this is end of 2019 or June of 2019, sent an email out. They're done with digital. They don't want to be in the digital space. They don't want to play in that space. They couldn't figure out the model. They couldn't compete with Amazon. They were having problems filling their customers' orders. Big challenge. Excuse me. So they've completely abandoned it, and it's working for them because their model works that way. They turn it and burn it. I mean, they really turn it fast. It's what works, and it's really proven successful. If you look at the success that Burlington and Ross and teachers are having right now, it's pretty amazing.
Sabrina?
I was just going to ask something similar to what Kristen asked. Do you think that off-price retailers will kind of swoop in on the opportunity for brands like or stores like Nordstrom where they have lost quite a bit from the dressy side? Do you think that off-price retailers or buyers are going to kind of try to come in and take some of that? Normally they would negotiate, say, for example, when I worked for TJ in say we had a brand that just mass produced too many backpacks, and we would buy those and then save them for the next school year and be able to make a decent profit off of those. Do you foresee off-price retailers doing with any of the dress items that aren't selling this year?
Not the dress items, but the luxury items, like So you will see our Hickey Freeman brand in TJ's very shortly. You will see it in Burlington. Why? Because Nordstrom's is not turning the way they should be. Now, also Nordstrom's is a little different story because they've got the rack, and they're in the process of opening up another chain, which is going to be a less expensive rack. So you're going to start seeing that. I don't know if they start opening up doors yet, but they will be opening up doors very, very soon. A third chain. So you have Nordstrom. We call that Nordstrom's mainline. You've got Nordstrom's rack, and there will be another chain. I don't know the name of it yet. That will be out there to compete with TJ's and Ross and Burlington. And for them, it's great because they get their hands on the product. They can leverage brands better than Burlington can or TJ's or Ross. They can leverage that mainline doors, and they do it now, mainline to rack. They can leverage it down as well, and it's going to be an interesting play for them as the future starts to unfold.
David, I have a question, and it's a little unrelated, but two of my colleagues in the management department actually are writing a book, and they asked me to ask. So do you think that fashion in the workplace will change after the pandemic is over?
Well, it's changed already. It's changed already, and we like to talk about dynamic change. I mean that's an understatement right now. I mean, so I'll give you an example. I wore a sport coat and a dress shirt to work every day. I would usually wear it with jeans, or I'll wear it with a pair of our cotton pants. I haven't put a sport coat on in almost a year. I'll put one on just because I need to put one on. However, as I'm saying this, and our active wear is doing very well. So we do active as well. We make for Soul Cycle. If you go into Soul Cycle, you'll see our product there. We make all the Soul Cycle product. We make Zella product for Nordstrom. So we're making active. So we know what's going on there. I believe that, and I can only talk from a guy's perspective, that men are going to want to start wearing sport coats again. They may not want to wear a suit and tie, but they're going to want to put a pair of shoes on. Everyone has the Allbirds. I mean, most guys, their most comfortable pair of shoes or sneakers are Allbirds. I mean, they're wool, they're great, they do all the great things, they're comfortable. Eventually, you're going to want to put shoes back on. Eventually, you're going to want to dress up again. And there's retailers like Men's Warehouse, for example, even JCPenney and Macy's. They're counting on prom season coming back, weddings coming back, dress up coming back, because there's going to be such pent up demand. Maybe it's not the end of 2021, maybe it's the beginning of 22, maybe it's into the spring of 22, but you're going to see a big bump eventually in people wanting to dress back up again. Maybe it's not to the extent of wearing ties in the men's world, or women wearing suits or dresses, but there's going to be some kind of new change of what they're going to wear. Maybe they're going to wear a t-shirt or something with a unconstructed jacket, but something's going to change, because I feel pretty confident everyone is going to be is going to have enough of wearing the athleisure type product. You're going to want to get out of your sweatpants. You're going to want to feel something different than you have felt before. Because I would tell you this, and I tell this to the teams I work with, our business is still a touchy-feely business. We can work remote. And during the pandemic, I had to go into the office and sit with my tech team, and we did fittings. It was me and my tech designer and our fit model. April, May, the wheels still had to move. We still couldn't stop. So it's still a touchy-feely. I'll go into the city, into my office in Manhattan 1 or 2 days a week. I have to sit with my design team. We have to touch and feel fabrics. We have to look at garments. We have to look at buttons. We have to look at things that make a difference, that the consumer is going to want to judge. And, essentially, we're force feeding what fashion is to the consumer, because right now we're working on spring 22. I don't know what's going to happen in spring 22. I have no clue, but we're guessing. We hope we're guessing right, but I know it's got to feel good. It's got to look right. The colors have to be right. We have to print right, and it's still touchy-feely. So there's still a lot of I like to call emotion in fashion. And that emotion is what keeps us all going, the passion, the love, and the making sure that that product not only feels good, but fits right. And that's just as important.
Thank you so much. I have one more question, and then I'll stay quiet for the rest of the time. So there used to be a theory in finance, right, an empirical theory that researchers actually used to try to empirically fit, and that was that the hemline on skirts are correlated with war, right? So the higher, so in wartime, the hemlines are higher. So do you feel that there's something like that now with COVID?
You know,
Not the
it's fun-
hemlines, but something
right.
else like that.
So it's funny. We're seeing, and this is not a knock on anything. It's just a term that's going on in my business in the denim world. They're calling it the mom jean is back, like the bell bottoms, the mom jeans, the comfortable jeans. So yeah, it's not the skin tight jeans. It's not the painted on things. It's things are changing from a comfort perspective. So I think that's not gonna change. I think comfort is here to stay. So I think that's very, very important. It's not the hemline, but it is the comfort. Once you put on sweatpants and you know what it feels like, and you can work in sweatpants and you can work in quarter zips, or you can work in whatever you're comfortable in, it kind of sets that mindset in your head that, hey, I can actually be comfortable. Why don't I find things that are more comfortable? I think you're going to find the athleisure area getting dressier, and you're going to start to see it very soon. Listen, women are going to wear leggings to work. They're going to wear them with longer shirts. It's going to be much more fashionable. We're seeing camo, which has become it's become a new color. It's booming. Camo and comfortable camo. I mean, I don't know if you can see it right now. I'm wearing a camo quarter zip. This is one of our items that are going to go be in. It's actually, I think it's on Nordstrom's.com right now. Solid chest camo sleeves. It's blue. It's not green. Looks great. Very fashionable. So colors are going to change. Comfort's going to change, and the way people are going to touch and feel and try things on, I think, is going to be very, very different. So I hope that answered your question. So listen, I think I want to leave you. I know we only have a couple more minutes left with something that's important that's going on right now. That if you're in the fashion industry or any kind of the anything in the apparel industry, you understand what's going on in the supply chain. So unfortunately, in our business right now, there's a major disruption in the supply chain. What does that mean? It means that the price of petroleum is up, and in a pandemic, you can't raise costs, but price of petroleum's up. What does that do? It's a cause and effect on the price of polyester and a price of spandex. And we know polyester and spandex go into a lot of products today. I don't remember what's going on in Australia, but I believe there's been a little bit of a drought in Australia that will affect the price of wool because what they call the wool clip. So the sheep, eat in fields. If there's not a lot of rain, it's not a lot of grass. They don't eat as much. The yield on a sheep on the wool they produce is not as great. So that goes into play. Items like Allbirds. Are they going to rise in price, and can they? So that's an issue. There's an issue now in getting containers from the United States back to China because there's no truckers to take those containers from, let's say, my warehouse back to the port to put on a ship. There's less workers on the docks taking containers off of ships and putting them back on ships. So it's getting tougher for me to find containers to take fabric out of China and move it to Bangladesh or any place else in the world. Same is true for containers to bring my finished garments from overseas here. So my freight rates have risen 50%. So if a 40-foot container would cost me $3,200 today, it may cost me $55,000 or $6,000. And I know I can fit X amount of units in it. So my costs are rising there. So my cost of raw materials are rising. It's taking me longer to get product from my factories into the States. It's taken longer for the items to get off the boats into the port. We have something what we call deveining. So if I bring a product in what they call LCL, meaning the full container is not mine, it has to go to what they call a deveining warehouse, where they take product off the container, take what's mine, give it to me, take what someone else's, give it to them. Less people working because of COVID. Takes more time. What's the cause and effect is less products getting to the retail floor it's just not getting there. It's not getting there. It's not getting there fast enough. Now, luckily, our brand, our Caribbean Joe brand, we brought all of our spring product in December of last year. We have a big advantage because we know that our competitors can't get product into the States until sometime in March. I have a free runway now for 2 and 3 months and be able to ship our product. So it's good for me because I brought it in, but it's, you know, it's costing some of my competitors in a pretty big way. I know this because when I'm talking to Burlington and Ross and TJ's, I can get more for my product now because I have less competition. So I'm getting a little bit more than I would because they don't have much of a choice. They kind of have to buy a product from me right now. Now I hope it turns. If it turns at that price, then I can make an argument then, hey, it's working at the price you bought it at. You can sell it higher. We're still working on the same margins, and we can kind of make a, you know, make an argument there that it still works at a higher price. So the world is an interesting dynamic right now. It's challenging. Managing a global supply chain is as frustrating as I've ever seen it before. It's phone calls at 6 in the morning to factories overseas. It's talking to them at 10 o'clock at night when they're starting, and then again when they're finishing. It's an interesting challenge, and it's something I'm looking forward to ending hopefully very soon.
David, can I ask you one last question?
Sure.
For all the students who are here today, and most of them are business of fashion, you know, graduate students or undergraduate students, what's the best piece of advice you can give them to do before they graduate? What kind of skills to hone in on, or what kind of new opportunities they should try to arbitrage their way into?
Well, I think the most important thing to understand is what the true business of fashion is. Understand your costing models, understand how everything affects, anything affects product, from shipping costs to raw materials. How does it all affect financially? How does it all come together? I think it's really important to understand the kind of soup to nuts basics of that, because that affects everything right down to the consumer level. It affects what I'm going to charge Costco or Macy's. It affects what they're going to charge their consumers. It affects the profitability. So it's really understanding the margins, what makes up the margins. How do you get there? How do you get to a $10 product? What does it mean to give Costco a $10 product? Where do they need to sell it? What's the most important price point at Costco, and can I build it there? I know that at $19.99, I could sell them 500,000 units. At $24.99, I can only sell them 50,000 units. So there's these unique retail thresholds that can make or break you. And if you understand them, and if you understand how to get to them, you'll have a leg up than the person you're going up against for the job. If you can understand and talk through that process and understand the important retail price points.
Thank you so much, David. I am so grateful to you for making the time to come here tonight to speak to all of our students. We're so really honored to have you.
It's my pleasure. And listen, if anyone has any questions, I mean, you can share my email address. I'll be happy to answer any questions via email if you have something. It's kind of an open door. If anyone is interested in coming up and taking a quick run around our showrooms and our floors, email me. I will. It'd be a pleasure once things kind of get back to normal. Be my pleasure to show you around our offices, what we do. We're unique because we do everything in men's and ladies and kids, from swim to active to tailored clothing to dresses to swim. I think I mentioned swim, men's and ladies sportswear, and different price points. And we also own a brand called Moose Knuckles, which is a very, very high-end outerwear company as well. So we do a lot of different things. It'd be my pleasure to kind of walk you through, show you some of our product, how we got there, and what the retail value is.
That That is so wonderful, David. We're going to distribute the email tomorrow, and I think Gal and I will have a conversation about whether we should send groups over, so you don't have 62 visits.
It'd be my
And we'll
pleasure.
talk to you offline about what's best for you, because I think everybody's going to want to take you up on that.
It'd be my pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you all for having me. I hope I didn't run around a little bit. I hope I was as clear as possible. I like to talk. I'm passionate about what I do. Sometimes my sentences get a little run on, but it's more out of the passion of what I do. And listen, I've been in this business for probably close to 30 years, maybe a little longer. I stopped counting. It's fun. It's something new and unique and different every day. So I would encourage you to enjoy it, enjoy the challenges, enjoy the stresses, because the good is never so good, the bad is never so bad. And if you can find that really good medium ground in fashion, it's truly amazing. So thank you all very much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Professor.
Gal, can you turn off the recording?
Hey, Dr. Roman.